People often compare children to their famous parents. But for the children of the Beatles, the pressure was on a whole different level. The weight of their last names came with relentless expectations, and one heartbreaking confirmation from George Harrison's son left many fans in disbelief. So what was this revelation? Let's dive in. In the entertainment industry, many young artists feel stifled the moment they step into the spotlight. A big part of that struggle comes from being constantly compared to their legendary parents. And when your parents happen to be members of the Beatles, that pressure becomes almost unbearable. This is the story of the Beatles' children: Julian, Zach, Jason, Mary, Lee, and Donnie. They not only inherited musical talent, but also the burden of living in their parents' colossal shadow. No matter how gifted they were, escaping the long legacy of the Beatles was nearly impossible. Let's start with Julian Lennon. Born in 1963, Julian entered the world during the height of Beatlemania. He grew up in the glow of his father John Lennon's fame. But behind closed doors, life wasn't so magical. His parents' divorce and John's later relationship with Yoko Ono left Julian with emotional scars that stayed with him throughout his life. Still, despite these personal challenges, music became Julian's salvation. One of the Beatles' most iconic songs, Hey Jude, was written for him. While it became a beloved anthem for Julian, the song was bittersweet. It reminded him of pain, confusion, and longing. But he refused to stay in that emotional place forever. Julian once said, "Nothing changes until you change. Everything changes once you do." With that mindset, he stepped out of the shadows and began building his own legacy. He followed in his father's footsteps and pursued music, releasing his debut album, Veloute, in 1984. The album was a commercial and critical success, earning him a Grammy nomination. Yet despite the acclaim, he struggled to replicate that level of success in his future projects, likely because the world never stopped comparing him to John. Still, Julian kept moving forward. He stayed committed to his creative passions, branching out into photography and acting. He wasn't just a good singer, he was truly gifted. But what many people don't know is that, in Julian's heart, photography brought him the most joy. As he once said, "As much as I love music, photography is what makes me the happiest." The next key figure in this story is none other than Zach Starkey, the talented son of Beatles drummer Ringo Starr. Born in 1965, Zach was nearly 2 years younger than Julian Lennon and grew up surrounded by rock royalty. With Ringo as his father and Keith Moon of The Who as his godfather, Zach's lineage alone created immense expectations from the world around him. But what most people failed to recognize was that behind the famous last name was simply a young boy with a deep love for music. While Ringo knew firsthand the toll that fame and the music industry could take, he tried to steer his son away from that path. He wanted to protect Zach from the chaos he had experienced. What Ringo didn't fully grasp was that Zach's passion for music wasn't born from external pressure. It was something innate. It was in his blood. Despite his father's efforts to remove the drumsticks from his hands, Zach always picked them up again, quietly proving that he too carried the spark of greatness. That passion became undeniable when, at the age of 8, Zach received a drum kit from none other than Keith Moon. That single gift ignited a fire in him. From that point forward, Zach began his musical journey with determination and drive. He played with various bands, sharpening his skills, until eventually stepping into the spotlight in the mid-1990s as the drummer for The Who, taking up the very spot once held by his godfather. Replacing a legend like Keith Moon was no easy task, but Zach brought his own style and intensity to the stage, earning the admiration of fans and critics alike. He honored Moon's legacy while carving out his own identity behind the drums. Despite his accomplishments, Zach remained humble, often joking, "I'm not a rock star. I'm not famous, I suppose, but I am a very successful musician." Beyond his time with The Who, Zach worked with several other big names in the industry, including Paul Weller's The Jam, Oasis, and Broken English. His collaborations reflected his versatility and quiet confidence. Both Julian Lennon and Zach Starkey faced the enormous challenge of following in their father's footsteps. Yet despite the weight of those legacies, they found ways to step out of the shadows and create careers defined on their own terms. Their stories show that it's possible to honor the past while still forging your own path. Zach didn't just aim to protect his father's legacy, he extended it. In 1985, he married Sarah Menachaides, and together they welcomed Tasha Starkey, the first grandchild of a Beatle. Like her father and grandfather before her, Tasha embraced music and pursued her own path in the industry, becoming yet another link in the Starkey family's enduring musical legacy. Just imagine the Starkeys gathered together at home for a casual jam session. What a priceless moment that would be. A private concert from a family of drummers and musicians whose rhythms have echoed through generations. Still, not every child of the Beatles found the road to success so smooth. Their journeys were all different. Some struggled, others soared, but each had to reckon with the towering legacies they inherited. There's another Starkey many people tend to overlook, Jason Starkey, Zach's younger brother. Unlike Zach, Jason's journey took a very different turn, marked by turmoil and eventual redemption. Born in 1967, Jason grew up surrounded by music, fame, and all the privileges that come with being the child of a Beatle. On the surface, his childhood seemed golden, but behind the scenes, cracks in his parents' marriage and the overwhelming pressure of carrying a famous last name slowly took a toll on him. What started as sadness gradually morphed into frustration, which then spiraled into rebellion. Jason began acting out, committing petty crimes, and finding himself in trouble with the law. One particularly low moment came in 1987, when he was caught attempting to steal a car radio. It was a clear sign that he was headed down a dangerous path. As the years passed, Jason's troubles grew more serious. He found himself entangled in drug-related issues and legal problems. Yet despite the chaos, one thing remained true. He was a Starkey, and like his father and brother, he possessed a deep love for music. Eventually, Jason did embrace his musical roots and pursued drumming. For a time, he even performed alongside Zach. But unlike his brother, the intense comparisons to their father Ringo Starr felt more like a curse than a blessing. The weight of that legacy seemed to stifle his creativity rather than inspire it. Jason didn't shy away from voicing his frustration. He once openly admitted that being Ringo's son was one of the biggest challenges he'd faced in life. A label that followed him everywhere and made it difficult to be seen as his own person. In an unexpected twist, Jason made the bold decision to leave the spotlight behind. He shifted his focus and began working as a road manager, while still drumming for smaller, lesser-known bands. This move wasn't about failure, it was about self-preservation and finding a path that felt right for him. Some might say he ran from his family's legacy, but it can also be seen as a courageous step toward building a life on his own terms. Perhaps with a little encouragement from Zach, Jason found the strength to redefine his future and pursue peace over pressure. Fate, it seems, finally showed him some kindness. In 2010, Jason married fashion designer Flora Evans, and the couple went on to raise 3 sons together. In stepping away from the chaos of fame and the expectations of Beatlemania, Jason found something far more valuable: a life of quiet fulfillment and personal freedom. Mary McCartney, born in 1969, quietly carried forward the Beatles' legacy, but she did so in a way that was uniquely her own. Her entry into the world was modest yet symbolic, as she made her first public appearance on the back cover of her father Paul McCartney's solo album. Influenced by her mother, Linda McCartney, a talented photographer, musician, and passionate animal rights advocate, Mary soon discovered her own love for the arts. She found her voice behind the camera, eventually carving out a successful career as a professional photographer, known for her emotional portraits and striking fashion photography. When Linda tragically passed away from breast cancer in 1998, Mary channeled her sorrow into purposeful creativity. She honored her mother's memory not only through photography, but also by embracing Linda's vegetarian values. Mary authored several best-selling vegetarian cookbooks, carrying on the message her mother had once championed. Her creative journey didn't stop there. In 2001, Mary stepped into the world of documentary filmmaking with Wingspan, a heartfelt exploration of the band her parents once formed, offering an intimate look at their music, their relationship, and their legacy. Mary's passion and dedication extended into her work with MPL Communications, her father's company, where she played a key role in the picture department. Her contributions showed that success within the family business could be achieved through talent and commitment, not just a famous last name. Beyond her professional life, Mary also embraced the joys and challenges of motherhood. In 1999, she gave birth to Arthur, making Paul McCartney a grandfather for the very first time. She later welcomed another son, Elliot, further expanding the McCartney family. However, even a fulfilling family life has its trials. Mary's first marriage to filmmaker Alistair Donald eventually ended in divorce, but life offered her a second chance at love, and she later found happiness with director Simon Aboud. Together, they built a blended family and raised 2 more children. Through all her pursuits, artistic, culinary, maternal, Mary McCartney proved that it's possible to honor the past while still creating a future of your own. Next up is Lee Parkin Starkey, one of the lesser-known children of the Beatles, but certainly not one without her own compelling story. Born in 1970 during the height of Beatlemania, Lee's arrival came at a time of great public attention and personal turbulence, as her parents' marriage was already on shaky ground. From the start, her life was far from quiet. Surrounded by fame and chaos, Lee inherited not only her parents' physical traits, but also their magnetic presence. She naturally gravitated toward the spotlight, often appearing in television commercials alongside her father, Ringo Starr. It didn't take long before she began exploring her own interests in the fashion world, eventually launching the successful boutique, Planet Alice. However, being the child of a Beatle came with its own set of struggles. Just as she was finding her path, life took a harsh turn. In 1994, Lee was diagnosed with a brain tumor, a devastating blow that shook her world. Although the initial treatments were successful, tragedy struck again when the tumor reappeared in 2001. To make matters worse, this recurrence came shortly after the heartbreaking loss of her mother to cancer. Despite the pain and uncertainty, Lee found strength and creativity. Immersing herself deeper into fashion and cosmetics, she began using artistic expression as a way to cope and heal. Her resilience inspired those around her, and she showed that determination and grace can flourish even in the darkest of times. Fortunately, Lee triumphed in her battle against cancer. Yet the experience forever changed her. It gave her a renewed sense of purpose and an unshakable will to give back. Drawing from her personal journey, she became an outspoken advocate for cancer research and awareness, dedicating her time and energy to helping others facing the same fight. Through her recovery, Lee used her voice and platform to raise both awareness and funds for various organizations committed to curing the disease that had touched her life so deeply. Her advocacy was not just about healing, it was about creating hope. What becomes clear through Lee's story, and the stories of all the Beatles' children, is that each of them has carved out a distinct path while still being shaped by their legendary roots. Whether in music, fashion, activism, or beyond, they have each made their mark in a meaningful way. Their message, though unspoken, is loud and clear. No matter where you come from or what obstacles lie in your way, pursuing your passion with dedication and hard work can lead to fulfillment. The children of the Beatles have shown that legacy doesn't have to be a burden. It can be a springboard to greatness. Finally, we arrive at Donnie Harrison, a name that resonates deeply with both Beatles fans and music lovers alike. As the only son of George Harrison, Donnie holds a special place in the world of music, carrying both the immense privilege and heavy responsibility of his father's legacy. Born in 1978, Donnie's very name is a nod to his father's deep spiritual connection to India, referencing specific notes in the Indian musical scale. From an early age, it was clear that Donnie had inherited George's musical ability and passion. However, his path wasn't like the typical child of a rock star. Rather than growing up backstage at concerts or on endless tours, Donnie was raised in the serene environment of Friar Park, the family's countryside estate. His childhood was filled not with paparazzi flashes, but with the quiet beauty of a garden, lovingly maintained by his father. In fact, for the first 7 years of his life, Donnie believed his dad was just a brilliant gardener, not a global music icon. This innocent misunderstanding, once revealed, left fans both touched and stunned. Imagine the son of a musical legend, unaware of his father's global influence, protected so well that he lived in blissful ignorance. George Harrison had made a conscious choice to shield his son from fame's seductive dangers, offering Donnie something he himself had never known: a normal, grounded childhood. That choice later proved invaluable. When Donnie eventually stepped into the public eye, he was mature and emotionally ready to handle the attention and the inevitable comparisons. Their bond remained unshakable, and as George's life came to a tragic end in 2001, Donnie stood by him, both as a son and a collaborator. Together with Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney, Donnie helped finish Brainwashed, George's final album. This act was not only a tribute, but a testament to Donnie's place in the Harrison legacy. Yet his musical journey didn't stop at honoring his father. Donnie embraced his heritage while carving out his own identity, bringing in modern influences like electronic sounds, layered production, and socially conscious lyrics. His music reflects his generation's voice: introspective, experimental, and deeply personal. Still, being George Harrison's son comes with ongoing scrutiny. Critics and fans often compare his work to that of his father, especially when talk surfaces about unreleased or incomplete recordings George left behind. Such news frequently sparks debate in the Beatles community, raising questions about artistic intent, legacy, and what should be left untouched. If Donnie were ever to complete and release any of that unfinished music, it would walk a fine line between honoring his father's memory and possibly reshaping the way the world interprets George Harrison's final artistic vision. Donnie's role in this delicate balance adds even more complexity to his journey, as he continues to define what it means to be both the guardian and the torchbearer of a legendary name.